Hey, ladies and gentlemen, Round Lake Village Board of Trustees Workshop Meeting for April 11th is now in session. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item is very quick presentation on the potential purchase of the Van Patten property and a little discussion of why we're considering that. The Van Patten property is, if you're not aware of it, right there. To the west of it is New York State land. It's New York, Orange is the New York State land. And this is a little parcel of county sewer land that won't be developed. Currently, there are 96 apartment units already approved by the town of Malta, directly to the north, just opposite of the Van Patten property. Those have already been approved. And there is a pending proposal that was presented to the board last week, or a couple of weeks ago, that is here somewhere, that will bring between 300 and 400 units, little bit of retail, strip mall kind of commercial, some I think 290 apartment units are planned on this side, just to the south of the Malta Gardens Trailer Park. About 100 condominiums in this light blue, about 50 townhouses / twin homes here, and then 20 or so single family units. So that has been presented to the Malta Town Board as a conceptual plan. It needs to be, I think they need to come back with more detail and incorporate some of the suggestions that the Malta Town Board gave them. After that, it goes to the planning. Well, they probably will refer it to the planning board. They could just say no, but my reading from attending the meeting is that they will refer it to the planning board. The planning board will look it over, make suggestions, or make a recommendation to the board. The town board at that point can either say yes or no. They are not obligated to follow the recommendation of the planning board. For example, the planning board unanimously rejected a big marina on the south end of Saratoga Lake, but the town board ignored it and went ahead with it. It eventually didn't go through, but this illustrates that they're not required to follow the recommendation of the planning board. But at that point, they can either say, yeah, it looks good, go ahead. And then, or they can say, no, it doesn't fit. We have done actually that latter approach a couple times when we've had proposals for the Van Patten property. One of them was, I think, was it a senior citizens home was proposed there?
The guy came in, I think it was the same guy who came in with two different proposals about a year apart. One was senior citizens. I think he was proposing 150, 180 single units.
Yeah.
And then when that didn't fly, he came back with some kind of apartment.
Yeah.
About 150 or one or the other. Yeah.
At that time, it certainly wasn't terribly feasible because there was no water being anywhere near there. Now, the big issue is there's a new Malta Water District has been proposed, which means that Malta is looking to buy the Saratoga Water Services, which currently serves a couple thousand residents of Malta. And it will bring it down, it will bring water service down here. So it would be a short run to get water to this area. Plus, there's a new Maltaville Water District that's been approved, so development will encroach from this side, as well as I'm sure you're all aware of Global Foundries chip fab being approved and going somewhere over here. So we are being surrounded, and the board is of the mind, I believe, that we would like to preserve what we can of the green space. So that is all I have to say about that. So any board discussion on this?
On the, what you just talked about, I mean, I would agree, I think that being surrounded is probably the best way to put it. And I also think that when this goes here, you know, all you have to do is drive up to the price chopper, you can see what's happening. But I think when, after this goes, and the rest of Route 9 below us, both on the Route 9 side of the roads. And, you know, I would prefer to have as much green space in this village as is reasonably, we can do reasonably, whether it's through conservation easements, outright purchases, any kind of deals with the public land. Because I don't want to live. It's kind of like a bit of. And by the way, I should point out that that's top up there. I don't think enough people from down here.
This one?
That is one of the most beautiful spots in this whole village.
Yeah, that whole valley down there, the
Yeah,
Boston
it's
Creek Valley
unbelievable.
is really beautiful.
Winding road and the old growth timber and go down a bridge and everything.
The winding road Tom's referring to is the Zim Smith connector. It goes from Route 9 down here along the Boston Creek, and it's really, really beautiful. Then it goes up to the Route 9 bridge. It's a very nice piece of land.
I agree with the statement that it's probably, once that goes in, south of us is probably gonna be developed. I'm seeing it happen already on Wood Road.
Mhm.
They're starting to clear things, they're starting to,
Water was coming down Wood Road. The water connection is coming down Wood Road, and development follows that.
and I know they've been pushing to clear out a lot of the hazardous materials, tires and all that stuff. That has been a hindrance in the
Yeah.
past.
My comment on it, as people are aware, I was supportive of the proposal for the commercial property that was there, because I felt like it was gonna be very low impact. We were receiving a lot of that land back for free. However, now that the development's coming down the rest of Route 9 there, we've sort of been rolling the dice with hoping it wasn't developed residentially, which they could without any sort of PDB, just within current zoning. And so I really don't want to see residential development there. I think it's hard enough to integrate parts of the village already that have been added to the core village, and I think this part would be particularly difficult in terms of building the type of community that we want to integrate into the village. So in addition to the points raised about creating a buffer, ecological conservation buffer, it makes sense to me to do what we can to preserve that.
I mean, I'm in agreement that we should purchase it.
The lines of communication have been open And what I need is authorization from the board to attempt to negotiate a purchase. And that involves discussing price, whether you want to do that in open session or executive session after the workshop.
Let's do it in executive session and then hold off the vote till our next meeting, which is just next Wednesday. So,
Okay,
and then I'll get the information out to people ahead of time so that they'll be able to see what we're voting on.
Well, would it be wise to have some rough idea of? You know, the
you
negotiation?
will when we go into executive session
Yeah,
after the
okay.
workshop.
Well, what we had offered when I wrote a grant a couple of years ago to buy this, he was willing to sell it for $275.
Yeah.
So that's the amount that was written into the grant. That's public knowledge, so. And that was before water was coming
I
down,
would
so,
say,
but
I think you would expect with further development of the water, lines that if we don't take action now, that price. Whatever it ends up being. Considerably more down the road, should we have the option to purchase it, but that's assuming that something isn't coming to develop.
alrighty, next was a discussion of the very, 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 very rough ideas, just to start discussions of dealing with some of the traffic in the village. Now, village roads are assigned various widths from DPW, from DOT, and from our old maps that we use. You'll see some of them, the ones that are in green, are 40 or 50-foot widths, like I think Lake Ave is one. Where I live is a 40-foot road, 40-foot wide, and cars could go by without having to go on people's yards. A couple others are Haven's a 50-foot road. George is a 50-foot. Some are 30, some.
And if I can make the comment, I live on Andrews Avenue. And I can assure you that at least my part of Andrews Avenue is nowhere near 30 feet in width.
It's 30-foot is
but-
what the village owns, or the village has jurisdiction over. The
Okay.
paved part could be 15 feet. That's much more reasonable,
Got it.
but it's. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, yeah.
Yeah, because the pavement, like Morris and New York Ave, it's 17, 16 or 17.
Yeah.
feet, basically.
But I mean, just in terms of relative
Yeah,
to each other, which is the wider one, which is a more narrow one. And that's what drove my initial thinking on, where do you put the traffic? You put it on Burlington where there's, plenty of room, put it on Lake where I live, where there's more room than on Albany or, 20-foot road, Asbury. You're right, a 20-foot road really translates into a one-lane road. Some of the feedback that I got from the meeting I had last Wednesday, that I sent around to you guys earlier, was one of them was that hard data needs to be collected, and I certainly agree with that. And I'll try to organize all the data I have and collect some more data where I have gaps missing. One person was opposed to the idea of stop sign cameras. The same person also suggested traffic lights in lieu of stop signs. I don't know how expensive that would be. Installation of sidewalks on both sides of George Ave. I do know how expensive that would be. It's not a bad idea, but if we could get a grant for that, that's something worth looking at. Um. Data, traffic lights, sidewalks.
What data is it?
Data is basically, for example,
volume of traffic, speed of traffic.
traffic volume. This kind of data.
Who's prepared that?
There's, well, I've gotten some of it from Department of Transportation. We have a gizmo that does the same thing. So I collect data using the radar data. This here is from the George Ave, from the Round Lake bypass to Route 9. This is collected from the Department of Transportation. I don't know how visible that is. But it shows the volume and the number of cars exceeding the speed limit. Number of speeding vehicles, 10 o'clock on a Wednesday, 36, 11 o'clock, 48. So they did that for 4 or 5 days. What's the data? Looking for, and here's again, daily volume on, I think this was George Ave. The volume, the yellow is the school pickup times and drop off times.
But that, okay, so that's the one.
Yeah, but oh, I have data on
Oh, you,
many more. Yeah,
Oh.
I've been collecting data for several years now.
oh,
So I've got volume and speed data. And it's just a matter of putting it all together and then to get a baseline so that if we were to take, I think what I really need is, for example, just to pick a street, I don't even know the name of the main street, the one that goes by Baker Park, Sunny Park. The one that goes by there. I mean, how many cars go down there a day? I don't know. But if it's 25 cars that go down there a day and they have to take a different route, I mean, how big a burden is that? How big a burden is that on the other streets, the feeder streets? So that's some information I definitely have to get. I put this picture here. One of the suggestions was take the stop sign away and just put in a crosswalk, because people are required to stop at crosswalks. And this yield sign would indicate that that doesn't always happen. It's had a hard life, that one at the Zim Smith crossing.
Did I see in what you circulated, the possibility of speed bumps around our parks and playgrounds?
I'm not sure if that was in,
Whitfield.
oh, no, those were, oh yeah, those red things in this instance were
Yeah, it's
dead ends. Possibly seasonal dead ends, maybe from March until November 1st. Because that would solve a lot of parents' issues of concerns. The red spots, the red dots are where people currently park, so that traffic would have to be allowed to get there. One person thought that they were where we were putting stop sign cameras, but no, that is. Initially, what I had thought about stop sign cameras would be Burlington and George, Washington and George, and possibly Haven and George. I don't know if any of you watched the video that I did a couple months ago now. And I just parked my car down there for 2 hours and filmed. A couple of the residents here made cameos in that video. But it was just, just tens of cars just going through, some crawling, some going through at like 5 miles an hour and some just going through 10, 20 miles an hour. And that's one of my pet peeves. I spend a lot of time down at the garden, the community garden, and I just see it. Every time I walk my dog, I see and go down there, I see cars blowing through it.
So stop sign cameras would issue a ticket.
Oh, the way the
Fine.
stop sign, the way the stop sign cameras work, and they're not legal at the moment, but there's legislation pending, I think, that I sent around to everybody who's on the email list. And if you're not, get me your email address. It's pending in the Senate now, and Kerry Warner's going to sponsor it in the Assembly if I can get Saratoga County approval. But it would allow villages in the town of Nassau and hopefully Saratoga County to contract with a company that will put a camera up and manage everything. And for probably 90% of the income that it generates. Now, my biggest question is to them is, can you set it so that, you know, there's a 3 mile an hour limit? You don't have to stop and count to 3 and go. But so I'm hoping that you can set it so that somebody just stops and crawls through it, it won't trigger it. But if they go through it 5, 10 miles an hour, it'll send them I think it's currently a $50 fine, no points. And that's it. It would be at no cost to the village. I'm not quite sure how much revenue the village gets, but that's certainly, that's not my major.
The red light cameras that were put in Albany created no revenue. Small amount of cost, city of Albany, very simple setup.
I got one, I got a ticket in 1998 in New York City on the West Side Highway.
Yeah, so it makes a lot more money for the company than it does.
Oh, yeah,
for
yeah.
municipality, For sure, it's more of a safety issue for us, and any of those camera type technologies cannot, by definition. It's not a white space thing.
Right, right.
But yes, if there were 1 or 2 of them. If it's on every stop sign, village.
No, they would never do that because there wouldn't be enough
Yeah,
volume.
Right,
there.
you could argue a lot of stop signs. in the village are- There's stop signs where there shouldn't be, and there's places that don't have them that should have. I had a couple of other people that reached out to me with suggestions for traffic as well as, you know, the basin before.
Is there any companies that can come in and look at traffic flow and traffic patterns?
Oh, yeah, yeah, it's traffic engineering. We had about 6 years ago or so, before we put the stop sign in at George and Burlington, I think it was, we had a company come in and they wanted to do a traffic study. I said, oh, okay, how much to do a traffic study? And they quoted us a price of like $8,000. I said, that's crazy. So we bought a $2,000 gizmo and collected our own data. And also DOT is very helpful about doing traffic studies. I mean, they don't do the road geometry or things like that, but they do, they can give you the counts and the speed, things like that. So, yeah, but the traffic studies I've seen, we can do the same things in-house. I can share one with you. It's really just a picture of all the buildings around and exactly the same data that we get from our gizmo, the traffic, the number of cars that, you know, are going each way. A little more professional looking, but for the amount of money, it's.
Yeah, I just didn't know if there was an engineer or somebody that could look at that data and actually make it make logical sense for the flow and ways that we can improve it.
I think our numbers are too small for
Okay,
it's like, you know, our sample size just isn't big enough because we have
Dozens of cars.
instead of thousands or
Yeah.
hundreds. Yeah.
yeah,
No, it's a good idea, but I think we're just fortunately too small.
So one of the things I always thought, and since I lived on that street, no longer do, but felt this way for a long time, is that Asbury should be one way going out of the village. Into it. I just feel like it's always been terrible design that people can fly right off the curb. down Asbury. It's
Yeah,
here, earlier, it's one of the narrowest roads in the village also.
Somebody at the meeting last Wednesday suggested a flow around the auditorium
Yeah.
where Fletcher one way this way,
Yeah.
then Asbury one way going out.
Yeah.
If you're turning turning right from Asbury, then you would go down
Berlin.
Burlington instead. So,
Yeah, and that's my second comment is actually around the Round Lake Library. I believe it should be one way. I don't have a preference of direction, but
on
that-
Wesley or,
Fletcher to Wesley, or Wesley to Fletcher, one way or the other, because that is a line turn there right in front of where it's quite unsafe, have cars.
this is currently one way, Second
Yeah.
Street here.
Yeah. So I think if you had that circulation pattern, would be down Fletcher Road, around Wesley,
That way and up,
Asbury,
or that way.
makes some sense. And then the other comment I had from a resident was around Kirby Hill and
Right.
potentially one way in that, and I think that makes a lot of sense as well. Again, that's a real tough area in terms of turning, so it would be one way going down the village, down to sort of around Colville, down East Colville.
Yeah, walking my dog, I've had, it looked like cars about to coming up the hill quite fast, and
Right.
I think they were gonna go airborne and hit us,
Right.
and that's kind of scary.
So if you had to come back around there, you would simply go down Prospect Ave, down James, around Prospect. So.
The Covil Ave, this bend here is where we're talking about.
Yeah. So those are areas where I feel like there are opportunities to, I think there's, especially Asbury. Asbury for me, it's always been
Yeah.
one since I lived there, but continuing to now, I just think it's a matter of before somebody flies off that road and hits somebody. And then lastly, of course, around the playgrounds, I think something safety, and then there's a number of different options both in terms of sunny and shady parks where I think more Baker Park, because the roads are that much closer, but whether it's speed bumps or one way or doing something with parking or even just signs or whatever, I think we take some steps to improve the safety for kids around that area.
I thought about the one way particularly.
Yeah.
One thing that we need to consider, and why I sort of hesitate on one ways, is apparently people speed more on
It's-
one
it
way
is true.
because they're not seeing the car
Yes.
coming at them.
That's accurate.
So that is something we would need to consider.
Yeah, that is very true. Which is why I think it's critical to look at the direction of traffic. So for instance, if we were to one-way Asbury coming into the village, I think that would be a disaster. And to your point, there's no reason for someone to slow down. However, if you're one-way coming out of the village, you're not giving cars a tremendous amount of time to speed up that road. So, yeah, but I do think it's something that's definitely worth consideration as well. And that's something that another president actually brought up to me. It's the
I wonder if that holds with kind of low traffic roads, because people who live in the village are kind of
Kind of what
aware that the roads are narrow, and
I've been nearly run over by more people who live in the.
yeah.
that could be you.
Oh, I didn't think of that.
Something else to consider when we're looking at the one ways and changing flow is with vehicles like my pickup truck.
Mhm.
I've definitely went to turn down a road and I physically can't turn down it.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep in mind when we're looking to change streets, is not all vehicles can
And we
turn
had,
down all of the village roads.
Yeah.
well, we certainly wouldn't make it harder to turn, anything. And also I have to coordinate with Johnny about the snow plowing. We can't.
Yeah.
I
I was gonna say one more advantage of one way is just one of the biggest problems with Gary raised earlier is cars have to sort of go off the road, which it's a lot of money in terms of village, in terms of repaving, because that breaks the road up that much more easily. You get crumbling along the sides all the time. So especially on these really, really narrow streets, there's no way two cars can go down those streets. And so you are forcing cars on the side of the road, which causes more rapid deterioration of the paving.
the crew has done a good job of, it's not very attractive, but putting gravel
Sure.
on the side
It's better than
to
it was.
predict that,
It's
prevent
better than
that,
it was,
but
but it's still. an
it's
issue.
not very attractive either.
No, look at, I mean, you could look at Whitfield Avenue, which was paved 3 years ago, no, 4 years ago. It was just before I moved in, and, part of that's due to parking, but it's the roads and things already. It's not-
Um. Talk about one-way stuff. So keep your ideas coming in. You have any thoughts? Out
Thinking
there?
about putting a committee together again for this area. or
Yeah,
just-
and we've been promising that for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
Now I think. Oh. Thomas, this one's for you. Would it be possible to make them seasonal one-ways?
I would have to check the state manual. But I'm not aware of any limitations.
I know you can make seasonal highways. The state does it all the time, but. That
I
would
think
be,
for planning purposes, we should say yes. That it's doable.
It seemed awfully to me that that was.
Didn't we, yeah,
Yeah,
it would be-
For the month before and after we.
Didn't we used to do that with Goldfoot? Or not Goldfoot, Simpson, we used to seasonally one way it.
Well, that was during the, antique stuff.
oh, Antiques
Yeah, but it
Festival,
was
that's
still-
right, that's right.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
right.
Yeah,
4 or
yeah.
5 days, it was
Yeah.
one way, nobody.
Yeah.
Celebratory.
Yeah.
That's right, because the bus had to get down there.
Instead of making seasonal one ways, maybe at exclusions for DOT vehicles. Like with crossovers that are dead ends, so that way they can cut through in the winter. To do whatever they need to do to plow.
Yeah, I think it.
I won't get
we need-
anything.
We need to be thoughtful about it. The last thing
Yeah.
I'll say on this too is I don't think we should do everything all at once. I think it's worthwhile identifying and triaging a few
Yeah,
hotspots,
yeah.
trialing, learning from those trials. And adapting as we go forward. So I don't see this personally, I don't know what your all thoughts are on it, but I don't see this as we're gonna come up with this brand new plan and change all the entire road layout of the village, but rather I think we should identify 2 or 3 hotspots first and then work to see how that impacts safety, traffic flow, and things like that.
Definitely agree to start out small. I think if you make too many changes too quickly, everybody's just gonna be confused and it's just gonna not do anything.
We also don't want an ocean of street signs out there.
Yes,
That's it.
exactly.
So random weird question perhaps. How do you let these?
There's so many subcontractors
Right,
and
you have like, if you had something seasonal, you have, if you change the signs. If you change the direction. Signs up everywhere.
no, I was thinking not changing directions, but just. I was thinking more in terms of blocking off a street
It's a challenge.
with bollards,
Speaking of that. Who's responsible for the bollards on the,
the county. The county. Is there,
twice people have driven down this.
Yes,
oh, well, that's from our side. We have a little driveway leading up to it.
Why do we have it?
I don't know,
It's always.
so they can get the wood to the bonfire for Christmas.
see,
The seasonal, yes.
Seasonal.
That's all right. We'll just put up a one-way sign, problem solved.
That's
Can
it.
yeah, can we block that off, I think is where Eric's going.
Yeah, I was just always wondering why it was there.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
ugly.
Well,
I'm just trying to do that.
Well, I know the guys use it to go on there and go down and pick up the doggy waste stations and things like that.
They drive down the people.
And it used to be that was the parking for the auditorium.
Yeah.
People would access that parking by the little driveway, so to speak. Now they paved over the bike path, driveway still remains.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Something to think about.
Oh, yeah, what a big block.
So any more on this? I know Matt and I have committed to doing a committee on this. So
Yeah. Yep.
we'll be looking for interested volunteers. Next, Antiques Festival, use of grounds resolution.
Didn't we add that to the other resolution?
I think there was a question about dates or,
It was dates for the one for, the antique festival is different than market, so.
just wanted to do, but we didn't know the dates. So, is that the most recent one, same one?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I thought we amended that to allow.
but I don't, Peter didn't have the dates, so.
We couldn't put them both on the same time, so you just need to separate it.
Alrighty, resolution number, okay. Whereas Women's Round Lake Society, Improvement Society wishes to license the use of land owned by the village, to wit, Roe Park, South Park Lawn, Auditorium Lawn, Burlington Ave, between Second Street and Fletcher Ave, and the peripheral adjacent parkland. Henceforth, the subject premises for June 22nd to 23rd, 2024, in order to conduct an antique festival at Round Lake, a community event open to the general public, which may include live music, the sale of merchandise, the sale of food, beverages, including alcohol to the extent permitted by law, and other items on a retail basis, the net proceeds of which will be paid over to or retained by Wireless, a New York State not-for-profit corporation. And whereas the Round Lake Board of Trustees finds that these events are an appropriate use of parkland, that the events will materially enhance the quality of life for the residents of the village and surrounding communities and constitute a public benefit, it is therefore resolved. The Round Lake Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the mayor to enter into a license agreement or agreement with Wireless. The use of the subject premises is set forth above in a form approved by the village attorney and found by him to be substantially similar to the license agreement between the parties for the events of the same name in previous years. And be it also resolved that the Round Lake Board of Trustees authorizes the following closures starting at 2 p.m. Friday, June 21st, ending at 4 p.m. Sunday, June 23rd. Second Street from Lake Ave to Wesley and Burlington, from Asbury to Fletcher for the Antiques Festival at Round Lake. And be it also resolved that the Round Lake Board of Trustees authorizes the use of the village tents, tables, and chairs and community room.
Second.
Discussion? Tom?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Eric? Yes. And last, set a public hearing for the budget for April 17th. You have a resolution for that? Pardon?
I don't have one
Okay.
written.
I will move that we set a public hearing for the budget, 24-25 budget for 6:30, April 17th,
Yeah, April,
17th,
right,
right? Okay,
yes,
Is that,
discussion,
that's next week,
Yeah.
who's second?
yes.
I'll second.
discussion?
Is that kosher to do it on 6 days? Set up over there?
Yeah,
Other question, we had a little thing that we wanted to amend in the budget for future.
oh, that's,
Okay.
yeah, that's,
We don't have to do it.
no. Oh, we do, but we can do it next week. We have to vote. Thank you, Tom.
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Eric? Yes, thank you. And next, public comment.
As far as the traffic goes, I think you guys, a little while back, you had that tanker truck roll and circle that,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a chemical truck, right?
I'm not sure.
Wondering if any study was done on that, why it happened, and what our response would be. I mean, as far as I knew, I can't remember the name of that, if it got mixed up with water, it would become very volatile. I know a lot of stuff comes that way with a computer. I don't know if you guys know this from trucks.
come through there once in a while. I always think the smaller the tanker, the more volatile.
You know,
The black diamonds always. Well, I'm wondering if anybody got together and said, well, it happened once. Nothing happened, we can't help. But I always imagined that what if it did.
that's a very valid concern.
Perfect.
I think it's been a concern since before the bypass went in, right?
I think, yeah, we talked about it like that, they assured them.
But as I understand it, without, depending on anybody, I don't know, you know. I understand that the driver was at fault, and he was ticketed on a couple of different violations. So, you know, what I'm saying, I guess, is, you know, you got 100 trucks going through there every day, 400, or whatever. And, you know, for years and years and years, by one guy, screws up. It wasn't like, you know, there was a fault, it was a roundabout. You know, it was his fault. He was straight.
It's just they come off the highway and it's a straight hill down to a circle.
Yeah, I agree.
You just got done doing 65, you
Yeah.
came off the ramp, and away you go.
Speed bumps.
I
I'm not saying.
All right, we'll put 'em up there.
What I'm saying is, you know, I mean, you see down in Albany where they put the signs up. You know, to keep the trucks from getting on the freeway down off 87. You know, that it's there's a bend in the road, and you can flip your tractor trailer.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's just something that kind of, I think about once in a while. I mean, I know the small stuff hurts too. I think that might be a bigger. topic.
That I think is
We can do about
a
it.
DOT concern. I mean, that's,
I couldn't agree with you more. I just
Yeah.
don't know what we can do about it. as a
Yeah.
village. I think we've been talking about it since before it went in. You're going downhill and making the left, and I see these trucks all the time. They look like they're gonna flip over. Most of the time they don't.
they're right up on that
A lot of
little,
times they're like, yeah, they're like this, and you're like, holy moly, that thing's gonna turn over. And,
They're too big for the small.
yeah, and I couldn't
Well, I
agree with
go
you.
by it, I see, you know, you actually see it laying over on the side, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, well,
Yeah,
that's confirmation for me.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if fire company did anything different. Have they changed, you know, are they ready to handle that?
You're absolutely trained.
And then- okay.
really couldn't be a better location for a roundabout with trucks.
the people
They
in certain
forget
phone
you.
disagree.
If they could get to it.
They can get to this. No, most of the volunteers are from the village, so they can get it.
Yeah.
Stuart,
Violated DOT's own standards.
because it was on a grade and yeah.
So that's the reason.
Well, the original problem is that it didn't build the exit.
Yes.
Yeah.
For trucks to get in. Was it gonna be 7,000?
Said it wasn't necessary. It wasn't junk traffic.
Do you guys remember that bypass was gonna be temporary? Wasn't there, until they did put an accident?
I don't
It's
think
going
so.
pretty far back now.
I don't recall that.
don't know what it is.
I barely recall yesterday's.
It was temporary, my understanding of the whole 11A mix, so temporary.
Yeah, it was gonna cost something like, I'm pulling the number out of my hat here. But I think it was like $25 million. So,
Our village is really.
I couldn't agree with you more. I'd love to see those trucks going elsewhere, but
For 1.5 billion bad plan, 25 million is a number.
they have been doing it, they were doing a traffic study on the southbound ramp for exit 11. Where you have to make that awkward left during rush hour. They were doing a traffic study recently, so I'm interested to see, maybe Gary. would
Yeah,
follow
I'll
up
check
with you
on
and see
that.
about what they're doing or what they're planning or what they're trying to evaluate.
They've
In
been,
addition to the traffic volume, some of us can remember back when there was no exit 8A. And remember that you'd have cars taking off at 8 and 9. out, you have the right lane of the north lane. In effect, you wouldn't be able to use it because that was park. Before they built the AA, and then they had to build more for the park while they resolved that whole issue. And 8A cleared up everything. But if you think about the geography of the flooding and connecting, you gotta connect some major highway. You gotta connect it with 67, 9, 67. And if you think about it, when you drive over the bridge there between here, 11 and 12, and just look at it, how would you possibly engineer an 11?
I know the residents of Avondale are not happy about it because it would probably go
Yeah,
through there. Yeah, it's a hot button issue, you know.
Just as you're thinking about the traffic along George, you know, with all the development that they're talking about on 92 and then Watkins, everybody coming out of that's either probably gonna try to jump on the bypass to get up to the exit to 87. And being that's only a 2 lane, all that traffic, how many people are gonna just come down and try to sneak through the village? There's a lot more traffic, most likely on George going through the village, so.
To go where? You're talking about,
she's saying that people would come down and instead of taking the bypass, they come back to the light.
If the bypass is backed up, it might be a short.
Back
Not
to
short.
your picture of the new development stuff.
trying to get this bar out of the way there. Okay.
Yeah, well, yeah. So
So this one, developments here, you're saying,
if the traffic on the bypass is too heavy, they can stop in the village.
oh, down here and then George to the northway? Gotcha. I will make sure that a traffic study is done up there. Well, I will certainly request that a traffic study is done.
Susan, you can have the toll booth on one side of the village and I'm in the toll booth on the other side.
I just. think
Yeah, I
we
wish.
Block off
It's about to work
those
for Manhattan.
entrances and.
That's
Congestion pricing.
Seasonal-
Suggestion pricing,
seasonal
I like it.
walking is how it goes.
Hey, Gary, when we did when the presentation for what was the name of the company?
Pearson?
Jerson was made, I remember that there was a little piece of the property that is actually in the town hall, like a little sliver.
That's right. We'll be landowners in Malta.
Is that accurate? Okay, that's what it's
very small.
We're starting the takeover.
Okay, that's that northwest corner, like that
Yes.
northwest tip, right, is in the town hall.
Yeah,
So how does that work? Do we have to like
pay taxes.
pay taxes?
I'll pay the taxes about $1 a year.
I'm sure.
That part.
It's like that.
But if the village buys that property, would Malta just then change their map and essentially give us that little?
No, it would just show us that we own that property. We're just
No
the,
property outside.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Wasn't that big?
I mean, if we had enough money, we could buy this up here.
Yeah.
But that's a little crazy even for me.
Yeah.
All right, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So move.
So moved.
I have to go get that.
Mr. Finkel.
Ask about the white on the flag.
Oh,
It was on the other night. Is it
Actually,
back on?
she has some
I
info.
don't believe so, but, we have,
It wasn't stolen.
it wasn't stolen. It was taken off. It wasn't working effective.
Oh, okay.
We have looked in, we have checked with an electrician to put electric out there. For a light as well as be able to have extra outlets out there for other means.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten the written, estimate on that. To add to things, but it was done last week.
There's one conflict of interest already.
Stuart,
Just quickly, can you explain, besides adding,
besides what?
besides add there, that street, putting that aside, what is the purpose for one-way streets? What does that solve? What's the issue of this?
The purpose would be to keep people from, for example, well, besides Asbury, that's the most egregious example, was to,
There was a prospect of pole. And that was that's the hill by Diane.
yeah, that's one of them.
Cindy's, ours, pole, there's parking pad, let them go by, because they got moving.
Yeah, plus, I'm not even sure there's a street light there, and it's pretty dark, and cars come up there pretty quick. And it's blind, I mean, it's steep enough so that they can't see over.
Have a map of those.
I know you do.
Then as far as shunting traffic to larger or wider streets.
That was part of, I mean, if we were going to close some streets off, for example, if we closed off Troy Ave, because it's so narrow and there's these interior streets here are very pedestrian heavy and the visibility isn't great. But the one-way traffic around the village was part of the plan if we closed off streets, like we closed off Whitfield here, so they couldn't cut through Whitfield. Or if we closed off Troy, so you couldn't go through Troy.
And also the preservation of the road surface, but I think to Eric's point, I think it's worth looking into. Based on, we don't want to create more problems. For safety hazards.
Yeah, and depending on the numbers, it might not be worth doing one-way streets.
And we may have legal barriers to shutting off streets as well. I happen to have taken a look at those issues for another municipality in the last couple of weeks. You know, the rules are,
Well, it can be done because Maltaville Ave was dead at
Yes.
they
hammer-headed or
burn it
whatever.
off, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is possible to do that.
I'll have to find out how.
But this is Lake Avenue might be wide, but if that traffic goes down, if it's Andy's is not as wide.
Correct.
So, you know, there's complications there, from what I see is just moving traffic from one spot to another.
Right. Well, I mean, from my perspective, it would be moving traffic, and my guiding principle is moving it from a pedestrian heavy area to a less pedestrian heavy area. I mean, with kids.
So not to bring it, but have we actually ever had an accident? Well, anybody who's been hit by a car in the village in the last 20 years?
20 years, I'm not sure, but I know sitting on my porch, I saw a kid go through a stop sign and get hit by a car.
I think too.
I mean, it's the kid's fault, obviously, but
Speaking of which, right where Lake Avenue gets enters, right in that corner. I was on the front place, so
So it happens.
yeah.
I was about 2 feet away from hitting a kid who ran through a stop sign 3 days ago on Fletcher in Burlington. I was down Burlington. It ran straight through the stop sign on Fletcher, and
So really what we need to do is train kids to stop running.
That's right. That's right.
that would be nice, yeah. And I, as a father of young children myself, I.
And you can lead that committee, all right? You're the chair of that committee.
But thankfully, I was going slow, which I always do, and I was aware of my surroundings, because otherwise that kid would have been pizza.
Well, just one last thing, I'll get there.
There's a lot of consideration
We
to do.
understand. Yeah, it's
It's easier said. I think what we ought to do is focus on one, like the Asbury situation, and pick up one or two things and. You know, we have all
See how
these
they
great, see how they work, and iterate, yeah, so.
And to be honest, to show how quickly we work, I think maybe 5 years ago, we made Kingsley Avenue one way going out. And then COVID hit and we never did anything with it. So technically,
Right, because then there was, a thought to have it closed, like,
We were going to close it or
Close it
make
and
it
only
one
be able
way,
to-
but I think we approved
Right.
making it one way, but we never did anything because for 2 years there was no problem and then it seems to have abated, so.
Is police in the problem? Is it hard to get the sheriff's here?
Yes,
Yeah,
Very hard?
Yeah.
So I see them all over.
they like to get the easy pickings on the bigger roads. They don't like to sit on the interior roads and get the people that probably are more in danger of injuring some.
I've also watched the sheriffs and the state police not stop at any of the stop signs. Literally still going like 15 miles an hour, just over the speed humps and gone.
Sheriff went the wrong way on the street. Right at me when I was walking my dog.
all right, let's change the subject now.
We have a motion to enter.
We do have, thank you all. We will not be taking any actions on anything after, so. Thank you all. Discussion, Tom?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
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 have the
If
application.
you can sell a few extra for yours, it's bad. Me, right.
I got to do that.
Is this what we're doing in executive?
Oh, yeah.
It's all up to you. Tom.
All right.
You already got the file.
Going to go.
Yeah, it's fine. I won't be here. Anyway.
Good night,
Good night.
Hey, Gary,
Yeah,
I don't think I can make it to next week's meeting. I don't know if you guys seen that.
That's
earlier.
two.
I will not be here.
but I knew Matt couldn't. Next one,
Should be
Wednesday,
the
right?
last one on this. Follow me.
Bear with me for a moment here.
Back when we had to change the date from whatever the original date of this was. I threw that out there as well.
Yeah, no,
I'm sorry, I got too much coming in.
you guys will be here next week, right?
Yeah.
Okay.